All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking real music in real time for real people just like you right there and just like me right here. The band Cheap Trick belongs in my little series called The War on Whoever. In this case, it would be The War on Cheap Trick. They have a brand new record out, came out about a week ago, and with not a whole lot of fanfare, but a couple of patrons here on this channel sent me some music, including their brand new single. It's called Another World. And by the way, that is the title of the album. So it would be the title track to their brand new album, Another World. It's hard not to really like Cheap Trick. The problem is radio isn't doing Cheap Trick any favors, and they haven't for quite some time. And quite honestly, back in the day, when they were at their most popular, they still weren't getting the radio airplay they deserved. They were noticed for the most part for their live album, Live at Budokan. Then everybody wanted to go to Budokan to record albums. I think Chicago went there in the early 90s. And even though it never became a live album, it was one of their better performances. I don't know if it just brings out the best in bands to go to this particular location and record. I'm thinking Deep Purple did it as well. I can't remember all the bands that went there. The point is, the band Cheap Trick was far more than just their live album. This is a band that cranked out a combination of power pop and at times with new wave influences. Obviously, the Beatles were always kind of in their template. They borrowed from the Beatles to some degree, and they really were this kind of new thing. They were this Renaissance band that deserved way more recognition. Now, they did get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016. The critics were always very positive about Cheap Trick, but when Cheap Trick kind of did their own thing and strayed away from what the critics thought they should be doing all the time, they tended to get beaten down or beaten up in the press. And it's too bad because Robin Zander, as a vocalist, number one, is right up there with some of the great singers of all time, and he won't get, again, the credit that he deserves. But this is more about radio airplay. So they have this new song out, and a lot of older bands put new songs out, and there's nowhere to play them. Nobody's going to play this new Cheap Trick song, even though it would fit perfectly next to anything in their catalog. Robin Zander doesn't sound old. He doesn't sound worn out. He sounds like Robin Zander. And again, I just, I lament the fact that we're in this position, 20, 30, in some cases 40 years removed from the era of really good terrestrial radio. And for the life of me, if you were running a classic rock format, say back in 1988, right? And a band that was on your station a lot came out with a new album, but yet, classic rock, it's got to be aged, it's vintage, you can't just play something new. You run a liner that says, hey, it doesn't have to be old to be a classic. Or you've got this feature called Yesterday and Today, where you play something from the past and then play something new right next to it. And you're not going to lose audience because your audience does have some attention span. Whereas today, because we're all on phones and we're wanting our videos to be quick and, even focus testing for these videos, people say you got to keep them short. And then you look at the watch time and it's like, wow, I did a 7-minute video, but the average watch time is like 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So, imagine being a rock band today and you're trying to kind of get out there and be noticed. You're Cheap Trick, you're a brand name, you're still cranking out really great music, but yet nobody cares. Yes, your diehard fans care a little bit, And patrons on this channel care because they grew up listening to Cheap Trick in the 70s, 80s, and beyond. But, you know, a band like this can put out their best work and nobody's going to know for the most part. A lot of people aren't going to know about it. The people it should be branded for and marketed to, all right, aren't going to know about it. Yeah, I know there's Sirius XM radio. I mean, but there's so many bands. Last year, Blue Oyster Cult released a really great album that most people didn't get to hear. Should have been in my top 10 or top 20 or whatever. That was my fault. I should have taken more time on that list, but I was trying to get information out about other groups that I want people to kind of listen to for next generation. But as far as a classic rock band making a comeback, last year you had Blue Oyster Cult. This year you have Cheap Trick. There'll be others that will come out with great records and people will hear about it for a week or two and then it will go away. And this is the difference between the old way and the new way. The old way, an album could be on the charts for over a year and people wouldn't necessarily be sick of it. They would be happy that you're releasing a third or fourth or even fifth single from that album. Or because we had real album-oriented stations, the programmers from that radio station, I used to be one of those types of programmers, would pick the songs that they wanted to play on the air and thus making it a real worthy album purchase for the listener because they're like, wow, I've heard like 5 or 6 tunes off of this album and I like them all. I want to go buy the album. I just don't want to download one song, which is the thing that people do today. So anyway, Cheap Trick, brand new album out. They deserve better. They've deserved better for years throughout their entire career. You go through their catalog and you're going to hear some really well-crafted, thoughtful rock and roll, pop rock at times, power pop, whatever you want to call it. But this is one of the better bands in our history, and they're still making great music. So check it out. Their new album is called In Another World, and it's worth your time. All right. Thanks for spending some time of your time with me. I'll be back soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and Patreon for conversations. And just we got some perks over there that you can check out, that you can listen to, little things I put together. And it's pretty cool. It's only $1 a month. So you can do more, but $1 is all I'm asking for. Thanks again. See you soon.